two, one.
Good morning and happy Easter. Well, we have made it to April, and April is the month of the NFL draft. 3 weeks from today, the draft will be all wrapped up. So today, as we launch in, I will be looking at the rookie crop of quarterbacks and tight ends as we get going through. Next week, it will be running backs, the following week, wide receivers, and then, of course, we will have plenty to talk about with the draft. But, just trying to get you set for draft prep, maybe for rookie drafts and whatnot. But before we dive in and start looking at quarterbacks and tight ends, let's talk about the latest news. The big news of the week is Captain Kirk Cousins, no longer a free agent. Cousins signs with the Raiders. A lot was made of the fact that it was a 5-year deal with some auspicious financial numbers, but 2 years are a club option and 2 years at the end are void years. So really it's a 1-year fully guaranteed deal. This makes a lot of sense. He has some familiarity with the offense that's going to be in place there. The new coach for the Raiders, Kubiak, has also said that he doesn't feel great about starting a rookie in week 1. We know the Raiders hold the number 1 overall draft pick, and we will talk in just a minute about the player they are likely to take in Fernando Mendoza. But this creates a situation where they have a veteran to learn from. They have a veteran who could actually start the season. They have a veteran who can play some great games. They still have Aiden O'Connell on the roster as well, but now 2 different coaching staffs ago, he was taken. What is his long-term role? Doesn't really seem like he has a big long-term role or a big piece with the team. So certainly Kirk Cousins, when he was released, we know he was looking for a spot where he could be the starter. Could happen in Las Vegas, and if he starts the season and they start off well, you could see a scenario where maybe he starts for a whole season. I somewhat doubt it. Hard to believe they wouldn't get the number 1 overall pick in there, but we'll see how that all shakes out. Well, that is the biggest of the news. Let's now turn to looking at the draft, and we're going to start with quarterbacks. And really, for the purposes of the way teams seem to be approaching the draft, and for the purposes especially of fantasy and dynasty, there is really only one elite option, and that is the Fernando Mendoza, who I mentioned. He started for a couple of years at Cal. Not terrible numbers there. Had averaged 66.5 completion percentage. But in those 2 seasons, only 30 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. In his 1 year at Indiana, 72% completion percentage, 3,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. He looked really good, led them to the national championship. Obviously, a lot of people have been tracking, he was the Heisman Trophy winner. A lot of people have been tracking that he is the number 1 overall pick, and I think that's the case. And he's probably the only quarterback in the group here that you can feel good about having a solid chance to start at some point as a rookie. We just mentioned they signed Kirk Cousins. Before Cousins came along, had they picked up a backup like Minshew, or, Minshew probably wouldn't have gone back, maybe not a great example, but, one of the kind of long arc veteran backups, or even a Russell Wilson or something, you might not be feeling like there was a guarantee that person was going to start. I feel like Cousins probably starts week 1. Will he start the whole first season? I think that, again, depends on the Raiders, and not an easy schedule. Obviously, Chiefs, Broncos, and Chargers in their own division, playing the NFC West this year. So you're going to get the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Rams. So that is 9 games that are a bit of a stout challenge. But I think Cousins will probably start week 1. I would wager we see Mendoza, by October, November-ish. So when it comes to super flex drafts, a lot of ones that I've seen, he's going, pick 2, pick 3. And that makes a lot of sense because it is a shallow quarterback market. But what are some other options? Well, some guys have risen up a little bit of late. One of the ones that seems to be making a run is Ty Simpson. Simpson, the guy, only 1 year of starting experience, was banged up a little bit. Pretty solid year for Alabama, 64.5% completions, 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. There's some thought that he is a guy that they will jump up and that some team may jump up even to the back of the first round to try to get, or at the top of the second round. But where are these quarterbacks landing, and is there a real path to starting? And that becomes a question. Now, I've seen Simpson go even towards the middle. We just ran a mock draft a little while ago for the Roundtable podcast, and Simpson actually won at the 108. And I think some of that right now in a vacuum, when you're in Superflex, just looking at the options, I would think he would probably make a better second round pick in rookie drafts. But some of that's going to be lineup dependent. A lot of thought that he may end up with the Jets. And obviously they have Geno as the veteran bridge right now, not a lot behind him. But are the Jets a team that are also looking at the 2027 quarterback class? That's the same thought that's been given to teams like the Browns and some others. So if these quarterbacks land, are they kind of in a more like Will Levis type situation where they may get a chance to start a little bit as a rookie, but their team isn't very good and they're playing the draft lottery for the following year? And that is a real danger when you're talking about using your rookie draft picks, especially a first round pick. You need to get some production. Other guys, Carson Beck, obviously played 5 years at Georgia, a couple of good years as a starter. Didn't have as good a year in 24 as he had in 23, so he transferred to Miami, had a very solid year for Miami last year, actually set a career high in completions, was 338, over 72%, had 3,800 yards, 30 touchdowns, which was a career high, and 12 interceptions. He looked very good at times, but a lot of thought that, he is probably a third or a fourth round pick in the NFL. Another guy who could go into a situation like Arizona or the Jets or the Browns where they're just adding another body, but maybe looking on to another year. Garrett Nussmeier in the running here. He is a player. He did a lot better in 2024 than he did in 25, where injuries kind of held him back in 2024. Over 4,000 yards, threw for 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions last year. Limited to only 9 games, only had 1,900 yards, still a great completion percentage, only 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So he guy dealing with some injury issues. Drew Aller, another player who some people believe could be like a development prospect, could go between the third and the fifth rounds. Another guy who was better in 2024 when he was at the helm of Penn State. He started for Penn State for 3 years, but injuries really limited him in 2025. He only played in 6 games last year, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, still a decent completion percentage, but it's really the 2 years before when he combined for 49 touchdowns in those 2 seasons and nearly 6,000 yards in those 2 seasons combined. There are others that could be long shots. You got to kind of see where they shake out. Some people are high on Taylon Green out of Arkansas as a development prospect. Cole Payton out of North Dakota State has gotten some traction. I know there are some people that were higher on Diego Pavia. Obviously, he competed for the Heisman Trophy, but doesn't really profile to have great draft stock in the draft. So some of it, we'll see where it shakes out. And this is a group where Mendoza's clearly the one. Simpson seems to have worked himself clearly into the 2. And behind that, it's really going to depend on landing spot and opportunities. But honestly, when it comes to Superflex draft for your dynasty football team, I'm Mendoza's the only one that I would say I would take in the first round. I would probably target a Simpson, maybe end of first round, but more likely somewhere in the second round. And the rest probably third or fourth round kind of dart throws, guys you're holding to see if they get a chance. Stranger things have happened. We saw Riley Leonard, a very deep prospect in last year's draft, end up getting a starting spot. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders both ended up starting games last year, but the results weren't great. Did you ever feel good about having them as your starter? Those are some questions. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you only have three, four, maybe five quarterbacks go total in a rookie draft, because some of these guys maybe not worth shooting your draft pick. Maybe you pick them up as undrafted free agents, or maybe they sit on the wire and you wait to see if they really develop into any kind of role, because it's really hard to see any kind of guaranteed path to touches on the field for most of these guys. Well, that's a look at the quarterback situation. Let's swing it over and talk about tight ends. Tight end, another place where the top of the draft order is fairly well set. The top man when it comes to the tight end position is Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. Last year, 51 receptions, 560 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Was at Oregon for all 3 years, a pretty good passing game weapon. He figures to not only be one of the top, or to be the top of the tight end pecking order, he figures to be one of the top picks in the NFL draft. People seeing him going in the first round to pass friendly offenses, and that makes him a very interesting and attractive first round pick in rookie drafts as well. The last mock I did, I saw him go as high as 4. It would not be surprising to see him go anywhere between really 4 and 7 in the picks. But you probably need a top 2/3 of the first round slot to end up getting him, especially if he lands someplace like Kansas City, which has been some of the places where he's been mocked, a place where you could see him really flourish. Number 2 on the depth is also fairly well locked in, and that is Eli Stowers. Had a decent year in 2023 with New Mexico State, and then transferred to Vanderbilt his last 2 years. 49 receptions in 2024, had 62 receptions for 769 yards last year, to really taking a step up. Only 2 touchdowns last year, but you know, he had done some good things, and obviously gives him only 4 touchdowns last year, but has done some good things and puts him in a fairly good range. A lot of interest about where he might go. Some rumblings that the Broncos could be looking at him. We didn't get a ton out of Evan Ingram, but he is a guy I could see going maybe the end of the first round, depending on where he goes in draft capital, but probably early second round as a target there. The rest of the tight end lineup, kind of a little interesting. Tight end 3, largely in most sets of rankings, is Max Clare, who played for Purdue for 3 years, transferred to Ohio State last year, 43 receptions, 448 yards, a decent receiving weapon. Behind him, Michael Trigg, a guy that has intrigued some, was with USC, then went to Ole Miss, spent the last 2 years with Baylor. 80 receptions over those 2 seasons for 1,089 yards and 9 touchdowns. A pretty good pretty good slot. Actually had 6 passing touchdowns last year. Another guy in the mix, Justin Jolly, out of North Carolina. His last 2 years there at North Carolina, catching 92 passes for 1,150 yards and 11 touchdowns. Actually had 7 touchdowns last year. Down a little bit in yardage in 25 from where he finished in 24, but still a decent passing game weapon. And then there are some other tight ends potentially in the mix that we can be looking at. Joe Royer, Sam Roush, Jack Andrews, Oscar Delp, Tanner Kozoil, Eli Raridan. There are a lot of guys. Sadiq, going to be a first-round pick. Stowers, I think, late first, early second round pick. And then we'll have to see where some of these players are drafted. Second, third, fourth round draft capital seems to be a little bit of a better nod than if you end up in the fifth, sixth, or seventh round. And also, what is the competition? Where do they land? I could see a few of these guys filling in late second, but probably third and fourth round. That's where you target tight ends. Sometimes it takes young tight ends a while to get on track, and sometimes they never do. Famously, a couple of years ago, Ben Sinnott was taken in the second round, seemed to land in a good location with the Washington Commanders. And yet we haven't seen him produce at all in 2 years, and they just went and signed Chigo Conquo to take his spot, or to take the passing tight end spot, which leaves his value a big question. So that is a look. Probably it is not shaping up to be an exceptional dynasty rookie draft. We will look. There is some value and some good players in the running back pool. Probably the most value and depth is in the wide receiver group. But some interesting groups here. I mentioned I wouldn't be surprised if only 3 to 5 total quarterbacks go in the rookie draft. It wouldn't be a shock if you were in that same range for tight ends, although I think you probably get more like 5 to 7, especially if you're in a 4-round, 12-team league. That's 48 picks. That's a lot of picks on the board. But the real seemingly top 2 locked-in targets at the position, Kenyon Sadiq and Eli Stowers. And then we'll see where some of these other guys land. They have some potential and upside. Well, that'll do it for me today, looking at rookie quarterbacks and tight ends. Next week, we will dive into the running back pool, talk about, obviously, another place in this draft where there is a really super well-defined number one, and then there are some interesting players, and it's going to be some landing spot dependent. It'll be fun to look at the top 25 overall post-draft and see how all that has shaped up. But until then, hope you guys have a wonderful Easter Sunday.